Welcome to the Explore Your Writing session, a session to get you started for Academic Writing Month with Transfer Researcher Development Services. I'm Dr. Stephanie Sims, and I'm a lecturer in Researcher Development, and I'm going to guide you through this session. Before we start, you might want to grab a pen and paper, or if you have, the Explore Your Writing worksheet. There's a link below if you want to grab that now. As part of this course, we're going to look at your current writing habits, how to improve your writing habits, and how to plan your academic writing months. So what or who impacts your writing? We are going to be looking at 3 circles. The first circle is the circle of control, and these are things that you are in control of. So for example, your time to an extent, when you write, how you write, where you write maybe. So have a think about things that you are in control of in relation to your writing. The next circle is the circle of concern. These are things that are out of your control, but that influence you. So for example, deadlines set by others, waiting on feedback, but also the current situation and us having to work from home, family concerns. There's a whole range of things that can fall under the circle of concern. And lastly, there's the circle of influence. And these are mostly your networks or people that you work with. So have a think about who is in your circle of influence that can help you mitigate the impact of the circle of concern and give you more control. Maybe this is a critical friend who can take things up with someone else. Maybe it's just someone you have in your family that you can discuss things with so you feel less worried, for example. So have a think about your circle of influence. I'm going to give you a little bit of time for you to either use the worksheet or if you have pen and paper ready, to just write down some of the things that you think are part of your circles. Keeping your circles in mind, we're now going to be looking at different habits. And in particular, we're going to look at these 4 habits: behavioral habits, your artisanal habits, your social habits, and your emotional habits. Let's start with your behavioral habits. So what are your everyday writing habits like? Keep in mind that writing, at least for me, is a lot more than words on paper. I also count editing, sorting references, checking data, checking code, making graphs or tables, as well as reading and thinking and planning my work as well. For me, writing is everything that leads to an output. And that might not be a journal paper, that could also be a blog post or something else. So just keep that in mind when you think about your writing. Maybe it is more than words on paper. Maybe you have some writing habits in place already, but how do you know if they are working? Do you have a tracking system in place? I really like this one from Ellie Mackin Roberts. And here you can see that she sets a weekly goal of 25 times something. And underneath you can see there are two rewards, one for hitting the goal and one for exceeding it. So this is a really good idea to see how you could maybe reward yourself. But make sure that you set yourselves realistic goals as well. I do like with this tracker that it is not based on words, even though it could be, but I think you might want to think about tracking time. And then you can also track how much time you spend writing, adding words to your paper, how much time you spend editing, for example. And over time, this will help you to plan more realistically how long it will take you to write a journal paper, for example. If you're not quite there yet with your writing habits or there's room for improvement, there are a couple of things that you can try. For example, the Pomodoro technique is very popular and there's a whole range of apps available either for your phone, for your desktop, laptops, or maybe even your sports watch. The Pomodoro technique works in 25 minutes chunks of focused time, for example, for writing, and then a 5-minute break. And then you repeat that. Depending on the app you're using, you might be able to adjust the time for focus time as well as the break time. So you might be more comfortable doing 30 minutes and 10-minute break, or maybe you want to do a whole hour. But do make sure that when you use this technique, that you do allow for break time. Get up from your desk, stretch a little bit, maybe go outside. If you're not sure if the Pomodoro technique is for you, you can try time blocking. This is actually allocating bigger chunks of time, and I recommend that you use your calendar to do that. Why use your calendar? Well, this way your time is blocked, not just from yourself, but from others as well. So if you put, let's say, 2 hours of writing time into your calendar, hopefully when then someone tries to set an appointment with you, they will not put it into your allocated time slot. If you're not sure if these techniques work for you because you're currently working from home on your own, you can try writing with others. And I know right now that might be a little bit difficult. There's a whole range of virtual retreats available, and I will link to them below. You can also try a buddy system, maybe one other person that you check in with regularly. And it's always worth checking if you have institutional support. So there might be official or unofficial writing groups happening already. If you don't want to check in with someone regularly, you can try an accountability group. This would just be someone where maybe once a week you kind of send a text message or you maybe meet for a little chat and you can just share how you got on with your goals. Let's move on to your artisanal habits. How skillful are you as a writer? Do you know where to get help? Here are a couple of different things that I think might be helpful. There are really, really good books available. I really like Air and Light and Time and Space by Helen Sword and the associated base tests that some of this session is based on. There's also Getting Published or Stylish Academic Writing and Writing for Academic Journals. There's a whole range of books available. If you are based at a university, it's worth checking out if you have access to the books or maybe an online version. There's also a whole range of great blogs available that deal with different aspects of academic writing. And I will link these blogs below or in my blog post. The other thing that can help with your writing is actually practicing your writing yourself. You might want to try writing for other media. Maybe you have your own blog or maybe regular reflection. Things that you don't necessarily have to share with others. Another great way to improve your writing is to actually edit other people's work. So maybe there are other PhD students or colleagues or peers that you can help. Just make sure that if you do edit their work, they repay the favor. Next up are your social habits. So do you engage in productive conversations about your writing and your work in progress? Where do you find yourself? Are you someone who keeps your thoughts about your writing and maybe the struggles that come with that to yourself? Or do you openly share your writing progress, even if things aren't going smoothly? Or maybe you find yourself in the middle, where you do share some aspects of writing, but not everything. Wherever you are, I think it's worthwhile considering that the more we share, the easier it is for others to share, but also for us to find support, to get help, which is really important when we think about the iceberg illusion. I think it's really important that we do share the whole process of writing and everything that goes into it, and not just the kind of shiny success at the end, but the hard work that it took to get there. Something to keep in mind is that everyone struggles with their writing at some point. So the more openly we can share about these struggles, the easier it becomes for others to share, but also for us to see that this is part of the writing process. Support is available, and it's really worthwhile checking out what your institution provides, either via their website or specific support services. And depending if you're a staff or a student, these might be different. There's also a great community of writers on social media, and some of the hashtags you might want to check out are AcWri, AcWriMo, Academic Chatter, PhD Chatter, or PhD Chat. Let's talk about your emotional habits. So when I think about my academic writing, I feel fill in the blank. If you don't feel great about your writing, or if you even dread having to write, next time you have a writing session planned, stop before you write and think about how you're feeling in that particular moment. Maybe you want to write that down. Then halfway through your writing session, stop again and have another think about how you're feeling in that moment. And then repeat that exercise once you're finished with your writing session. And hopefully at the end of the session, you will feel better about the things you have achieved. Even if things might have not gone quite to plan, remember that you have had more done than you did at the start. So this is a feeling you might want to come back to next time to help you get into your writing session a little bit faster. If you're not sure how to get there, then using or building a routine can help. Because we can sometimes say that, oh, I'm not in the mood, or oh, I only write when I'm happy to write. But if we have this approach, then we will never write, or very rarely. However, if we do build a routine, we can actually get used to writing. Similar the way you might want to follow a running plan or any other kind of exercise that you might not enjoy at the start, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And writing is exactly the same. Make sure you do incorporate some form of reward system, whatever that might look like for you. Time off, having a coffee. I know right now some of these rewards might not be available due to local restrictions. However, I'm sure you will find something that you can treat yourself with. It's also worthwhile thinking about how to make writing fun. One of the websites I really enjoy, especially when I have to write kind of boring things, is the website called Written Kitten. What this website does is it's basically a blank word editor where you start typing into this white box. And you can select your animal of choice, so either a kitten, a puppy, or a bunny, and you set yourself a word limit. And once you reach your word limit or word count, you will get rewarded with a picture. So in my example, the picture of a cat. You can see there the word count is set to 100. So now every new 100 words, I get a picture of a new cat. And this way I get a little reward. I also get excited about seeing the new cat. And I also have a way of kind of distraction-free writing because within this editor, there's no way to kind of format as I write. So it's a good way to just kind of brain dump, for example, or if you find you get yourself too distracted by some of the things available in Word, for example, having this kind of cut backspace can be really helpful. Let me share some final writing tips with you before we look at how to plan for your academic writing months. Find out what works for you. Not everything that I have talked about today will work for you. However, if you do find a system to keep track and regularly reflect on what you are doing, you will hopefully find a system or a routine that is perfect for you. Just keep in mind that something that works right now might not work in the future. Maybe you want to update something that has worked in the past, maybe if you were in an office, but now that you find yourself working from home, it's no longer working. So it's a good time to have a sit down, think about what works, what you might want to change, and how to look forward. As part of that process, it's important to talk and share with others, either a peer group from your institution, on social media, or with your family and friends. Along the same lines, I think it's really good if you can find a support group. That might not be a specific writing group, but could be just a general research group, for example. Make sure you give new things a try. So some of the things I've talked about in this session might have been new to you, so it's worthwhile trying it out. You don't know, maybe one of them is just what you were looking for. And then remember that reading and reviewing are a big part of improving your writing. And not just reading and reviewing your own work, but also helping others by offering your editing services. As I said before, make sure they do return the favor. Let me share 2 approaches that you can use to plan your academic writing months. The first approach uses time blocking or protecting your time. To do that, you can use the Academic Writing Months Planner, which is a calendar for November basically, and try and schedule time for at least 2 or 3 days per week to write. How much time you can allocate to writing is up to you, but I would recommend as a minimum you want to do 1 Pomodoro, that is 25 minutes focus time and a 5-minute break. If you are able to book a whole day for writing, then that is probably ideal. However, make sure that you do break up your day and take regular breaks. If you're not sure how much time you can actually allocate to writing, or you want to keep things a little bit more flexible, then you can maybe try a goal-based approach. And with that, you set yourself a writing goal. That is either how many days per week or how many minutes per day you would like to write. If you really want to, you can probably use a word count as well. Just keep in mind that editing sometimes reduces your word count. And make sure you track steps towards your goal, either words or time or whatever other measure you have found that might work for you. I hope you have a successful academic writing month, whatever that looks like for you, and I'll be happy to follow you along on your journey.